And so you went to Berkeley for grad school? Okay, gotcha.
Yeah.
So you're already kind of looking into the matrix at this point. You're trying to see things that aren't there. The seeds of the GTD is probably being formed as far as you saying, well, what's happening around us?
Yeah.
Why are we doing these things? Why are we ruled by these invisible laws that we don't understand? Why we're behaving these ways?
Yeah, I got fascinated by that. And then, I was studying people who seemed to be enlightened, and then I decided I wanted my own. And then I also sort of seemed to had the experience that I didn't think I was going to find that in academia, because that was what else could you do but be a history professor? I mean, studying intellectual history or a writer or something. And so I said, okay. And through lots of different things, went on. And of course, Berkeley in '68 was kind of heady time to be there, all that stuff going on. But I really wasn't part of all of that. I was kind of observing it. But at some point, I just said, no, academia is not for me. And one day I just didn't go back to class. Okay. And said, okay, I'm going to go after my own enlightenment. And so then I got very interested, fascinated. A friend of mine offered to teach me karate. And so I got involved in the martial arts. I'd always been interested I'd loved the Zen aesthetic. I'd read all of Alan Watts and Suzuki even when I was in high school. And I loved that sort of minimalist elegance that the Zen aesthetic had. And I'd always been very interested in that. So when he offered to teach me the karate, I thought I wasn't really interested for the fighting aspect. I was interested more in what's the idea of a Zen kind of martial art. Okay, what would that be like? And so I got involved with that and kind of got hooked into it and wound up getting a black belt back in my 20s.
Was Bruce Lee on the screen then?
Yeah.
Okay, so early 70s, Enter the Dragon, 72.
Yeah, he had just come on the screen there. As a matter of fact, my sensei had sort of combined various different styles and wound up what he taught me was very similar to what Bruce Lee had come up with, Jeet Kune Do, which was, the idea of pure efficiency.
Multiple disciplines.
Pure efficiency.
Interesting.
Because that was what Bruce did. He said, how efficient can I make this body move? Yeah. How much power can I generate with how little effort? Which was and I guess that was kind of an attraction to me. I could probably even tie that into GTD. Like, with how little effort can you have nothing on your mind and make sure things happen out here.
Interesting.
Right.
With Steve Jobs has a famous Stanford graduation speech where he says, when you look back at your life, you can connect the dots in reverse. And he talks about, points in his life where he was fascinated with typefaces. And that later became, the proportional spacing that was on Macintoshes. Sure. And I'm listening to your life, and it's these little elements that kind of built parts of GTD.
Yeah, and because I'll even say that now as part of GTD, we use the phrase mind like water. Like have a clear head. And now the mindfulness people, that's a whole lot of what they're doing now. But I learned that 35 years ago because in the martial arts there was a lot of training about how you clear your head. Because if you're walking into being surprised by 4 people in a dark alley, you don't want 2,000 unprocessed emails banging around in your brain, right? You need to be clear. So how fast can you get clear? So focusing on your breathing was the best way to get clear because it brings you present. Mm-hmm. Your breathing is present. So that's and the mindfulness people know that. Yeah. That's what if you focus on your breathing, you're not in the future, you're not in the past. You're actually in the present, which is, from my experience, at least with a small s, a key spiritual principle, like acceptance. Yeah. But acceptance has to be right now. Can you not resist whatever is your current realities?
What else did martial arts teach you?
Yeah.
Or was that the big thing, or did it teach you other things?
It was that, and it was certainly a lot about focus. If you're gonna try to break through 3 inches of wood with your hand, it doesn't take calluses, it takes focus. And what you can't have is the thought of, wow, that's going to hurt in your mind. You have to already see your hand through it. So I learned back then the power of sort of visualization to begin with, because there was so much of that ability to focus, and a whole lot of that's driven by your mind. And so I learned a lot of that. And again, in retrospect, I could say, that a lot of that was just great training, about how to do that.
In one of your TED Talks, you said that a lot of GTD was a bit like martial arts, as in you're doing these things that are uncomfortable at first, that are building up a pattern that's going to make you work efficiently.
Yeah. And people often ask Brian why I call it a martial art, and the reason is because, it's really kind of an art, the art of how do I manage the flow of life's work and my commitments and that whole inventory. And you don't end that. I mean, how good can you get at parenting? How good can you get at cooking spaghetti? How good can you get at playing the flute? There's no end to any of those. There's no end to this either. I'm still tweaking and refining. As my life changes, then how do I manage the flow of that change in my life? That never stops. But the reason I call it a martial art is because martial deals with surprise. It deals with things coming at you can't see. Now that's in subtle ways true with painting and dance and anything else. That's like you're dealing with, all kinds of other aesthetic forces, I guess. But it's very much like email, some thought that I wake up, oh my God, they just fired me. I just got hired. I just bought a house. I just sold a house. I got divorced. I just got married. I just had a kid. I just discovered I have a life-threatening illness. So when those transition times in life are where you come up against how well can I deal with that? How fast can I integrate this new information, accept it, say where I want to go now, and refocus and recalibrate? That's why it's a martial art.